This podcast is sponsored by nobody.
Hey dudes, this is Susan Cosgrove, Crosshair Zombie number 3 in Dawn of the Dead, and you're listening to Tommy Throwback Kovac on Splat from the Past.
Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror sci-fi show where things could get totally radical. Now today, I will be talking to the helicopter zombie in George Romero's 1978 classic Dawn of the Dead, Jim Krut. Yes, Jim Krut, the helicopter zombie, will be on today. He's my 6th zombie overall and 10th guest overall from Dawn of the Dead. And it's going to be a great conversation. I am just so fucking excited. It's going to be wonderful today. The guy disappeared from movies for many, many years, and then he came back. He's been in a lot of horror stuff in the last 15 years or so. A lot of stuff I've never even seen, I'll be honest with you. But I'm going to find out what he did in that time. And he's going to be at Living Dead Weekend this July 2nd through the 4th. It's finally going to happen after, COVID happened last year and they had to cancel it. And it's going to be a great conversation. And that's pretty much it. So yeah, here is my interview with Jim Krut. Hey, welcome to the show, sir. How are you?
Well, I'm just chilling.
Nice. How's the weather over there?
It's climbing, looking like 94 or so today, maybe 97 in another day or so. A little warmish. I'm just kind of hunkering down in the AC.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it is over here. I couldn't sleep all night. It was so hot.
Yeah, it gets to be a bear.
This is such a great honor. Thank you for taking the time today.
Oh, no, it's a pleasure for me to chat with you. And I always like connecting with folks who are interested in the same sort of things, particularly in the horror genre. And hey, just to catch up, see what's going on.
Super excellent. Well, going back in time, did you gravitate toward acting early on in your childhood?
Yes. In elementary school, I played Abraham Lincoln in a school play because I could memorize the Gettysburg Address. That was my first claim to fame. Later, I wrote a play in high school and then had the lead in the school play. And then in college, we formed our own theater group. Now that where we'd gone to college, Point Park University,
Mm-hmm.
in that theater group was like Tom Savini, Nick Tallow,
Mm-hmm.
And Bill Royston, who later went on to form a theater company in Gettysburg. So there were a lot of interesting folks who kind of went out,
Right.
and then kind of blossomed back together again. And that's sort of what happened with Tom and me.
Was John Amplis there too?
I don't recall him at the time. We were in a journalism program, so typically, if somebody wasn't in our same curriculum, we didn't necessarily run into them. Okay. Now, the school also owned the Pittsburgh Playhouse, and that's really where theatrical training was professionally done. However, we were in a different line altogether, but we still liked acting, so that's why we formed our own theater company within the Point Park Players, I guess it was. Outside of the mainstream, but still within the college environs.
Yeah.
And we got to know each other pretty well.
Yeah, I have found over the last 4 years I've been doing this podcast about how so many people started theater companies. It's something that just seems so rare nowadays, but back then there was so much creativity going on where people would do that kind of stuff. And they tell me, yeah, it was a wonderful experience doing that, but it was also a lot of work and a lot of headache too.
Oh, truly it is. In many ways, you think, wow, I've done the best performance on this. Speaking about on stage, I've
Yeah.
done the best performance of my life, and I really studied this, and I think I made all the right moves and the right inflections in my voice, and costume didn't rip or trip over myself.
Yeah.
And when the show's done, it's gone. And you can do film, and geez, no matter how reckless things happen,
Mm-hmm.
if you stumble, you fall, you miss a line, whatever, we'll just reshoot it, or we'll fix that in post.
Mm-hmm.
So in many ways, it takes a lot of pressure off. But the other challenge with working in film versus theater
Mm-hmm.
is that in theater, you're always on. I mean, you start at the beginning of the show and you go to the end of the show. Somebody forgets lines, you find your way around or through that, but you keep on going. Mm-hmm. And you change with those emotional twists and turns of the script. But when you're working in film, a director says, okay, we're going to shoot this. And you just, pumping out the energy. And then they say, okay, well, I think we got the lights right. All right, now let's run it again. And something will happen. Oh, I think the sound was off. Or, okay, that was great, guys. Let's do it one more time from a different angle. Whatever. And so you find yourself trying to recreate that energy for that moment, time after time after time. And really, that can be a challenge. I've watched people do it, and they never do the same thing twice.
Yeah.
And maybe they're fishing for the right hot spot. I don't know. I always feel that if you know what you're doing and you know what you're going for, you know what you're aiming to do, and you want to consistently hit that mark. So anyway, just a funny little thing between theater and film.
Yeah, that's incredible. So you're born and raised in Pittsburgh?
No, actually, central Pennsylvania, south central Pennsylvania. And the reason I went to Pittsburgh was to go to college.
Mm-hmm.
So after 4 years there, I left, went into the Army for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, Tom Savini did also.
Yeah.
And he was a combat photographer. I went in as a combat medic. And I'd say 2-3 years after our tours were done, I'd found myself back in Pittsburgh. And I ran into Tom, and he says, hey, I've got this great role for you.
Yeah.
George Romero's doing this film. And I said, who? He said, well, you remember Night of the Living Dead, right? And I said, oh, man, yeah, I remember Night of the Living Dead. It was pretty groundbreaking and memorable.
Yeah.
But, I was working in theater pretty consistently. And the thing is, if you got associated, let's say, with a really terrible film or porn or something that was not favored publicly, that could kind of drag you down for the rest of your life in terms of working in that industry.
Right.
But Tom assured me, it was going to be a great film, and so I agreed to do the role. Met up with Tom at his workshop. We did the prosthetics there. A couple weeks later, went to the set, did the shoot, and was on set for just a couple days.
Right.
But the rest became history. And oftentimes people ask whether we knew Dawn of the Dead back in 1978 was going to be the cult classic and pioneering zombie movie of all time or whatever. And you can put whatever you want into it. You can do the best work or the worst work. You can throw a lot of money into craft services and make sure everybody's well fed and they're happy.
Yeah.
Or you can, do a great job with makeup, special effects, directing. Whatever it was, that combination, Tommy, it just picked up, and it was not up to us to make it succeed. It was up to the fans. And for them, we are, eternally grateful that they've made the movie what it is. And literally as a result of that, I think between Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead, it started a whole George Romero family, both of film, not only of fans, but of guests who would go to conventions. I met a lot of folks, all of the other the other Romero films that I'd never met before. And since then, a lot of us have become very close friends. So, I attribute that as one of the lasting bits of legacy for George Romero. It's a continuation of his good work, bringing us all together.
Yeah, I mean, I discovered Dawn of the Dead, just like when I was 19 on a video store shelf. Of course, I knew Night of the Living Dead because it was a public domain movie that used to show up on just random stations when I was a kid. But, Dawn of the Dead never was on cable, so I found it on a video store shelf when I was 19, and I've loved it ever since. It got me through a very dark time in my early 20s. I watched it all the time along with Day of the Dead, and just to see the cult phenomenon of it over the last 5 years or so that I've been going to horror conventions, it's pretty phenomenal, and I've been lucky. I've interviewed, you're like my 10th guest from the movie that I'm talking to today. Yeah, and the only person I've met in person from the movie is Ken Foray, and he was great.
Ken's a great guy. I like Ken a lot.
Yeah, Ken's a great guy, and the funny thing is, that guy's had a huge career beyond Dawn of the Dead in Hollywood. I mean, he's been in every TV show. He's been in lots of movies, A-list movies. He was in some Richard Pryor stuff back in the day. I mean, he's had a great career, and he doesn't have any ego about it.
No, I know that. A promoter once told me that he was going to ask Ken to come to his show, which was going to focus on Dawn of the Dead and a few other things. But what he heard back from Ken was, "I don't want to talk about Dawn of the Dead anymore."
Yeah. I don't even...
He said, "I have done a few other things, you know that." And I said, "Okay, yeah, well, however they work it out." But you're absolutely right. Ken's got a lot of talent. He's been in a number of television series, Water for Elephants, all sorts of films that you may or may not have heard of. And he's a fun guy.
Yeah, he's a great guy. And, I don't think he's ever done a podcast interview, as a matter of fact, because he knows that Dawn of the Dead will be brought up. So, yeah, I can understand that. So, everyone I've talked to from the movie has their own stories about being on set, but what stands out for you?
Well, it was my first film, and I think for anybody going on to a film set for the first time, you're nervous for a number of reasons. First, you want to do a good job. Right. I've been working in live theater for about 7 years up to that point. And as I say, when you're on stage, every moment counts, and you have to put your best into each and every moment. And that's pretty much how I approach the role. But when you think, gee, I have to wear this stuff and I have to be able to walk, and there was not a lot of background to it in terms of as my time came up to go out for the shoot, and I asked Tom, I said, "Hey, Tom, we haven't really had a chance to talk about this, but do these zombies talk or anything?" Because I had not been to the mall where they, or any of the other locations where they were doing any shooting. And he said, "They don't really talk, but you can do whatever you want to do. Just be your best zombie." And so I had to, from that point when I left the little airport admin building to walk over to under the little airplane wing to where my first shots took place, I had to think about, well, who's my character now? But you draw on a lot of things that you've seen, right. Whether it's I haven't seen many zombies at that point. You've seen a couple pretty stiff people from Night of the Living Dead, but that's not necessarily what you remember. But if you want to create your own, what makes them active? How do they move? Is there a consistency to them, or are they just ready to fall down? So not having seen any of the other zombies as such, you're on your own. And Tom, I knew, was going to be directing most of what happened with the helicopter, and George directed the parts under the wing to sort of set the stage for it, and give me a little extra screen time, for which I'm eternally grateful. Mm-hmm. Every section counts when you're on screen.
Yeah, of course.
So, I wouldn't just say improvise, but, I kind of got myself together and what I wanted to do with it, and came through and then did the character, did the stunt up on the boxes, top came off, and you don't know from what angle it will be viewed in the final scenes when it's on the big screen. So I want to look over here. I want to make sure they see my face. No, you go for the role, you do the thing, you do your character, you go, that's my piece of meat, I'm going to go eat that piece of meat. Yeah. It was refueled at a helicopter. And, you just do what you think that character or that zombie would do in that situation. And bingo, when the gig was done, I half expected them to say, okay, change clothes, we're going to shoot again, do another take. And George was just smiling. He said, no, that's great. He said, that's terrific. Tom seemed to be real happy with it. As long as George was happy, Tom was happy. And I thought, wow, that's it. And now, of course, I've been anticipating this for weeks, mm-hmm. just to get on set, to do this role. And, the first day I waited in the little admin building because I guess there was some rain. They didn't have the helicopter available at that time, whatever was happening. Mm-hmm. I don't know how they're going to do this without a helicopter. I do hope that I do get to do this role. It would be very, very nice to be able to do it. And then when the helicopter came in, I felt relieved. It was kind of a drizzly, damp day. And so after it was done, it was like, wow, that was wonderful, but I really want to do some more. Can I do it again? Is there something else I could,
Yeah.
You just get, you get such a head of energy, and you just kind of buy into the wonderfulness of the magic of movie making.
Oh, yeah.
And again, that was my first time on the set. And when I say nervousness, you hear about, oh, so-and-so said hello to this famous actor, and they got thrown off the set for doing it, and or did that to the director, or shook his hand or something, and he didn't want his hand shaken, and bam, he was gone. So you had no idea who these characters were. It was my first time meeting George, and he turned out to be a wonderful, wonderful man, and made the situation feel comfortable, friendly, enjoyable, and it's all the things you want to do. And when you're done, you think, that's who I want to work with again. And that's the kind of work I want to do. I really, really enjoyed that. But again, I was working in theater, and I'd only had a couple of days off from my travel schedule to do shoots. So once, the next day I was plunged back into travel and performance and rehearsal. And that kind of absorbed my life for almost another year. But it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. Mm-hmm. Since that time, I've done maybe 25 other films, and those have been since 2000. All independent films.
Right.
But I really enjoy working in the independent film media, because the folks, you bring a lot of new ideas, a lot of different energy and enthusiasm to it. I do have to say that some of them on their first draft of a script can be a little repetitious of things that have gone before. So when it starts out with, there's going to be a cabin in the woods, And okay. I kind of back away from that. But
Yeah.
other than that, I enjoy working with some friends I know in the area in Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, Ohio area, who are regularly using some of the locations. We have terrific locations in this region, and they're great friends.
Nice. Did you have a soft surface to land on when you fell in that scene?
I don't think it was a softwood, but it was still a box. No, it was actually a true to life stumble, just because the boxes were a little unbalanced, and I was focused on looking ahead rather than down where my feet were. So then when I did go down, it just collapsed. I'd done a lot of theater, taking falls. No, I wouldn't call it stunt work at all, but just how to fall. I'd taken judo, how to avoid breaking yourself when you land somewhere. And I figure, well, it's for art, and I better, just relax into it and see what happens. And turned out I didn't get too badly banged up.
Yeah. How long did it take to put the makeup on?
Well, again, I started at Tom Savini's workshop. The first time was maybe 2 hours to build up the prosthetics, which was, the alginate on the face and so forth. He did a complete head casting. And maybe 20 minutes or so for that to start to harden. Then on top of that went the plaster to keep the shape. And then I was breathing through a straw through all of that. So it did get me a little claustrophobic. And then a couple of days later, Tom called and he said, "Jim, we've got a little problem. The plaster cracked and we're going to have to do it all over again." So went back to Tom's workshop and did it again. Interestingly, though, Tommy, my present wife, Linda, my one and only wife, was there with me at that first makeup session. So we've been together since then as well.
Nice.
And she's held up much better than the makeup. So once we got on set, Tom had done this head cast so that he could build up the rest of the prosthetics, run the blood tubing in, and so forth. Mm-hmm. I'd say an hour or less once we were on set to do what needed to be done. Are we still there?
Yeah, we're still there.
Okay. And Jeannie Jeffries, who is the blonde zombie.
Love Jeannie. Yeah.
And great lady. She was also helping with the makeup at that time at the airport. And she may have actually been one of the people who helped to finish up my head and beard and those appurtenances.
Uh-huh. Did you go to a screening or premiere for the movie?
Yes, there was a showing for cast and crew, and I had no idea how many people there were involved. I found out when I saw the line going into this large theater in Pittsburgh, and the place was absolutely packed. I thought, there are a lot of people who were in this movie. And, of course, as you're sitting in the seat, there's a lot of anticipation. You look around, well, there's so-and-so. The interesting thing is, since I'd worked in theater for a number of years, I knew several other people who were in the film. I mean, I knew Nick Tallow because we'd gone to school together. He was one of the Raiders. Right. Later worked with Mr. Rogers. David Crawford and I had worked in theater together. David Early, we'd done theater together. Right. So you look around and you see some friends, and it doesn't seem such a foreign experience, like you're a loner or a one-off. But you start to wonder as the film begins, what's this thing all about? Mm-hmm. I mean, they didn't. We want you to review this entire script. No, this is my bit. This is what I'll be doing. And so I wanted to see how it fit in, if in my mind it fit in well, and if I would either be embarrassed by my performance or at least relieved by it. And then after that thought, you have the thought, I hope I made it in. Hope I didn't end up on the cutting room floor. That they didn't run too long, or something didn't happen to the film, or they just decided it wasn't going to work with the sequence of other things they had going. And so there's a lot of nervousness and anticipation. And when the scenes came up, it was fun to watch. And when I came on screen, I thought, oh man, that's cool. That's me. I made it that far.
Yeah.
And when the top came off of my head, there was this really mixed wow and applause and laughter and ooh, and just it was just such a wide-ranging response. And I thought, wow, I guess people liked it. At least they reacted, and it kept on going. And I was just on a high from there.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I mean, there must have been just a general audience reaction that was astounding, because this was not Night of the Living Dead. This was something that no one had seen before, and there had been such a natural progression with horror in the time between Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead that everyone just must have been going gaga for it.
Well, I think everybody wanted to be in a film. There had not been that many films made in Pittsburgh at that time. It has later become, a huge center for filmmaking. Mm-hmm. And even Point Park has its own filmmaking program now, and they do excellent work. The college, Tom and I'd gone to. So it was just a marvelous thing. We didn't know how unique it would be. We knew that it was maybe the start of something like, gee, if there's another film like this being made in Pittsburgh, that's pretty amazing. And maybe it's, we're pioneering a breakthrough in film in Pittsburgh. It's, you have so many feelings about it.
Right. Did you stay in touch with George leading up to his death?
After, I'd say about a year later or less, I'd left Pittsburgh, got married. We left Pittsburgh. Our first daughter was born, and I just wanted to move to an area out in the country that did not have some of the smoke and the pollution from the mills that were still producing lots of metal flakes in the air and such. So I lost touch with everybody in Pittsburgh for a bit. Mm-hmm. And then after a few years, moved to Harrisburg area.
Right.
And then the Gettysburg area where I am now. And it was really, since I started going to conventions in about 2000, 2001, that I re-encountered George Romero, and one of those was in Gettysburg when he did a show here, and I did. I was invited to be a guest at the show too.
Right.
And there were like 5 of us from Dawn of the Dead, and it was just wonderful. Of course, even in Gettysburg, it was hard to get close to him because he was just so surrounded and protected by his agent and the line of people who wanted to see him and talk to him and do autographs and so forth.
Yeah.
We did a few photos and things together, and I treasure each of those moments. But we had done a show in Maryland, I believe it was, sometime in early 2000s, and it was Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Land of the Dead.
Right.
And all of these actors from all of these Romero films in just a couple of rooms, plus George Romero. And I looked out, and I have to tell you, I thought, none of these people would have been here without George Romero. And I thought, what an amazing accomplishment that is. There's such talent here. And the way these people interact with each other, how friendly they are, whether it was just a matter of casting or whether a matter of, gee, I made it into this unique fraternity of being in a Romero film.
Right.
But I wanted to go see George because I had not seen him in 20 couple years at that point. And I'd peeked in a couple times, and there was still a long line. And toward the end of the day, the line dropped down a lot. And I waited a minute, and then I walked in, and he recognized me, and he gave me a big hug, and man, we just felt super. I just felt super.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, I've heard so many great things about him. I never got to meet him. He passed just before I was supposed to meet him at a convention that ironically got canceled because of a fire over here. But yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of good stuff about him, and that's great that you had that experience. So during the years that you were film acting, were you doing just theater?
Oh, you mean in like 2000 or so, or?
Like, during from the time Dawn of the Dead was finished all the way up until you started doing movies again, were you just doing theater?
Yes, primarily. Other than I did a lot of community theater and worked with a couple different theater companies, smaller companies, but not like the two I worked with in Pittsburgh originally. I was working as an editor for a weekly newspaper, put my journalism background to good use. And from that, after a couple years, it leaped to becoming editor of a statewide magazine, Pen Lines, for the Pennsylvania Rural Electric Association in Harrisburg, with a circulation of about 600,000. And the Pennsylvania Electric Cooperatives, there are 12 in Pennsylvania, and the largest one, after about 7 years of my being at the statewide association, asked if I would come down to Gettysburg and work for them. And it was just a whole different set of opportunities, because instead of just working on the magazine and newsletters and legislative things, I was able to get into advertising, write and produce videos, do productions for meetings. It gave me a lot of insights into how filmmaking is done, and the techniques, the equipment, and the growing portability and availability of equipment, and how easy really it was to get some fairly simple, not too expensive equipment. And suddenly you were making movies with great sound and great pictures, and if you had a little bit of knowledge, how to cut the pieces, the scenes together, do transitions, effects, and everything else. So I really enjoyed that a lot. But it really kind of stretched me in terms of being able to do a wider range of things and being in control of them. So I did that for about 20 years, and I retired in 2009, I guess it was. So, but during that time, I was on call 24 hours a day. That was the drawback. So I couldn't really commit to doing films. I couldn't really commit to doing a lot of theater, even because of the longer rehearsal periods. And somehow I managed to get in, as I say, about 25 films. And some of those have been in the last 10 years when I was not retired, most of them. But I did some other theater in the meantime. In fact, we formed our own theater company in Gettysburg Stage, and we operated that for about 7 years. I acted in it and was board president for a few years. We just loved it. It was unique plays. We felt that just hadn't seen enough light of day, and bringing some uncomfortable topics at times. So it felt like a challenge as well.
I bet, yeah. So I must admit I've never seen any of the newer movies that you've been in and stuff, but I was curious, did the convention scene have something to do with you getting into movies nowadays?
I would say maybe yes, a little, because one thing always leads to another, and I found that
right.
literally in life, everything is connected. The first convention I did, Cinema Wasteland in Cleveland, I'd never heard of such a thing. There I was doing a convention with all these folks from Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah.
And while I was at that show, somebody said, "Hey, I'm doing a show in Pittsburgh in a couple months. I'd like to have you there for that." I said, "Oh, well, that's even closer." So one thing there led to another. And I've had, when I was, well, actually, I was doing a production with Dracula with Gettysburg Stage. I was Dracula.
Uh-huh.
And afterward, as a fundraiser, I would do autographs of my Dawn of the Dead photos to help raise money for the theater after the show.
Right.
And one of the guys in the audience was a projectionist for a theater not too far away from Gettysburg. And he said, "I've got this great idea." He said, "If you wouldn't mind," he said, "I'd like to do a showing of Dawn of the Dead and have you then in the lobby where you could do autographs and talk to fans. And then we'll do the remake of Dawn of the Dead." I said, "That sounds fine. That'd be great."
Mm-hmm.
So after we did the showing of Dawn of the Dead and I'm out in the lobby, he says, "I want to introduce you to somebody, Gary Ugaric." And Gary says, "I'd like you to be in a movie." He said, "It's called Deadlands 2. I've got this great role for you." Sometimes when people say they got a great role for you, yeah. But I said, "Well, tell me more, send me the script." And it turned out it was a lot of fun to shoot. I really enjoyed it. I had a great role in there as evil government official. There were a lot of role models at that time, and probably now. So it was I wouldn't say it was a breeze to do, but it was a lot of fun. So yeah, again, one thing ties into another. Bam! Conventions lead to movies.
How have you done? Have you done anything that you want to talk about that you're proud of as far as movies since then?
Oh yes. Darkness Waits. We did in the sort of Waynesboro, Pennsylvania area. It's a sequel to Dead Woman's Hollow.
Right.
Libby McDermott, the director, and her husband, Matt Staley. They're just wonderful folks to work with. They had a great cast and crew to work with. I really liked working on that film. And the other one that I liked the best, I think, was probably A Host of Sparrows,
Mm-hmm.
with Kevin Boone as the director. And I got to play a hitman in that one. Kind of a nice retiree type hitman. It was just a fun role. And in Darkness Waits, I played a deputy. Somehow I get cast in these people who seem to carry guns, but hey, if you're either going to pay me or feed me, let's have some guns. Sure, whatever. Okay.
Yeah. How was playing Dracula on stage? That must have been cool.
I absolutely loved it. I was working at Adams Electric Cooperative here in Gettysburg, as I said, for about 20 years, and our CEO had come to see the play. And when he had his retirement dinner, there were like 200-300 people in this room at this big dinner, and they asked him to give a few remarks. And he said, he's worked with some interesting people over the years, and he was grateful for them. He said, "Hey, Jim, you should see Jim here. You should see his Dracula. He's just fabulous. Jim, come on up here. Come on." I mean, I'm sitting there with my wife. We're having dinner. He said, "Come on up here and do your Dracula thing." So, I did my little bit, and he said, "Wow, wasn't that fabulous?" So I made, I obviously made an impression on him, and if he's your boss, at the time, that making an impression can count. But I really love the role. It's probably the third time I've done Dracula. I did it with Carriage House Experimental Theater. We did a couple productions of it with Gettysburg Stage, but I really enjoyed that role.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I mean, Frank Langella did it on stage, and then he did the movie in '79. Yeah, I think it's a very underrated adaptation of the mythic character of Dracula.
Well, surprisingly, Dracula himself does not have that many lines. It does not appear all that much,
Yeah.
and that's kind of the mystique of the play. If you talk to Tom Savini, again, who Tom did all the makeup and special effects for Dawn, and has
Right.
been in a number of films as well, but he also has a love of theater, and Dracula is one of his favorite plays as well. He did a
Yeah.
production, I think, with Tassos Stavrakis, who was in
Oh
Dawn,
yeah.
at the Pittsburgh Public Theater, I believe. I did not see it, but we were talking about it, and a tables covered with this tablecloth, and somebody walks in the room and snaps his finger like Dracula, and
Yeah.
tablecloth disappears. He said it's really a magic show.
I've met Tom twice. He doesn't have very much to say unless he knows you.
You know, I think one of the differences is that there's nothing I want or need from Tom.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who see Tom, they say, "Well, I need an autograph, or I want you to do this or do that." So we're just friends,
Hmm.
and so there's no expectations. We'll go to the same parties together or something, and say hi, and maybe talk for a few minutes, or maybe not.
Right.
But we get along pretty well. We have a long history, long background, and it's there's a comfort level there that no, here somebody wants something from me.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's what we're all about, but
Yeah.
you get to Tom's level of appearing so many times in so many places. In a way, it's almost like Ken Free's casual comment about, "I'll go to this Dawn convention, but I don't want to talk about Dawn."
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I've talked to Tom's niece Melissa, though.
Uh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about doing another one for this upcoming weekend. I don't know if it's going to happen, but hopefully it will. If not, then we'll talk again in the future. But she's cool. Um, so I take it you've been to Living Dead Weekend before, right?
Oh yes, yes. It's one of the great Romero festivals, and I met Melissa there before.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 years ago, she and her brother and I were at the airport. There was a re-release. I was going to say from there was a UK film company that was doing a remastering and 4K release of Dawn of the Dead, and another 4-disc set last year. And so the three of us were at the airport kind of explaining what happened, where we were and what we were doing at the time and so forth. So it was really fun to get to know her a little bit that way as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we've done the Living Dead Weekend together a couple of times, but it's such a great collection of Romero guests. For the 40th anniversary of the film,
Right.
there were 40 original guests from Dawn of the Dead, which in a sense too tells you how many there were in the cast. There were a lot of people involved.
Yeah. Oh, a lot of people, and yeah, this year it's going to be Return of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and I just found out they announced a couple people from Night Riders. I think that's so cool. Last year, they made an attempt to do a Creepshow reunion until COVID hit. Hopefully, they'll get to do that in the fall when they do their second one. That would be cool. But yeah, that's so cool that you all get together and do this. I hope to go someday to a Living Dead weekend. I've never been, but because it's relatively new, but that's so cool that the state of Pennsylvania gets to preserve George's memory that way.
Well, I think one of the best and richest experiences of being there is knowing that that's where Dawn of the Dead was filmed, inside the mall, inside
Right.
the Monroe Mall, and the show is held in 4 of the stores. So it's just you have the experience of being in the same mall. You can go up and down the escalators that were at the in the film. And here we're talking about 40 some years later. And then, my golly, there are some of the same actors who were in the film. Whoa.
Yeah.
It's kind of a ricochet effect, and you get to talk to them, have a beer, maybe, whatever you like to do. It's a real close family, personalized experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I urge anybody who's a fan of any of the Romero films to, if they have a chance, check it out. And that's coming up this weekend at the Monroeville Mall, just outside of Pittsburgh. Now, Tom Savini will not be there because he was injured in a accident. I guess he was struck by a car, and he's still in the recovery stage. And I had an unfortunate issue with my arm and hand, and I really can't do autographs or anything at the moment. So I've had to drop out of that, and another couple shows in July. But things are getting better, and we're looking forward to healthier, better times.
Yeah. So you're having trouble signing autographs right now, you're saying?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
That's terrible.
Well, I'm doing some physical therapy for it, but and it's helping, but just we'll see what happens.
Do you know Sharon Hill at all?
I love her. Yeah, just talked to her. I think 2 days ago, in fact.
Because I've been wanting to interview her, right? And everybody I talk to, isn't in contact with her. She has a Facebook fan page, and she hasn't been on it in probably a decade or something. And yeah, I was just curious.
Well, she and I have been good friends for a long time, and we've done a number of shows together. And I usually ask if we could sit beside Sharon so we could help each other out during the shows as well. But someone was trying to get in touch with her about doing a show and asked if I was in touch with her. So I contacted her about a week ago. Mm-hmm. I mean, I left messages, phone call, and so forth, email. And I didn't hear back from her until the day before yesterday.
Right.
So she has another job. She's working a lot. She's a very, very busy lady. Mm-hmm. So it's not that she's ignoring things. She's looking forward to Weekend of the Dead this coming weekend, mm-hmm. But she's just really, really busy, and I don't see how she keeps up all that energy. I know she grows a lot of garlic, and she does a lot of running, so maybe that's the secret.
Yeah.
She has a big garden area too.
Yeah. That's so cool. Well, Jim, I thank you so much for coming on today, and I hope you have a great weekend over there. It's going to be 4th of July weekend, too, so it should be pretty crazy.
Oh, yeah, Gettysburg's already crazy. My wife went into town, and somebody said, "Where can I get something to eat?" At noontime? You're crazy, right?
Yeah.
So Gettysburg gets to be a little busy because of the reenactments. The lectures by the Park Service on various aspects of the battle,
right?
Vendors, shows, all sorts of stuff is going on. So it's a pretty busy, crazy place to be. But it's a wonderful place to live, though.
Nice. Well, you have yourself a great day, and stay safe when you go out there this weekend.
You too. Thank you very much, Tommy. I very much appreciate your having me on the show.
My pleasure.
And I look forward to hearing more of your guests as well.
My pleasure, sir. And have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Well, there you have it. Jim Krut. Ain't he a cool dude? What a nice man. And great stories. I enjoyed talking to him. And if you go to Living Dead weekend this weekend, I don't know if he's going to be able to sign autographs, but take a picture with him at least. Well, until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying there's no shame in living in the past because the present sucks. Later, dudes.